Welcome back to Reading Bear. Today, we will take a look at some new I Don't Work Here Lady stories. And if you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comments. Let's go!
The first one is titled, I'm Not a Tour Guide. About 11 years ago, my wife and I got engaged. My mill decided to gift us with an expense-covered trip to Paris as an engagement gift. So, we found ourselves spending a week in Paris, enjoying the city. Also, we met an old friend. My friend, nicknamed Indy, was doing a postgraduate degree in Paris. We met a couple of nights and we scheduled to visit the Louvre together. Next day, we met outside of the Louvre. Along with Indy was his GF. She was a history of arts major, slightly important for later, from Norway. Indy was an archaeology postgrad. He has, since his preteen years, an obsession with ancient history, important for the story. Also relevant to story, my wife likes to read a lot of history books. We start our tour in the Louvre from the Roman section with Indy taking the role of explaining what we were seeing. Now, because of his GF, we all speak English. We pass the Roman section, followed by the Greek, stopping on the Aphrodite of Milos. In that section, Indy really took off with his explaining, not only with Aphrodite but with the Muses as well, statues of them in the same section. Then up the stairs to take pics of Nike and onwards to the Renaissance section. On the way towards the next section, we stopped in a room that had models of some of the wonders of the ancient world. One of them was a model of the Temple of Zeus in Olympia and the giant statue of Zeus made from ivory and gold. Indy stops to explain this to his GF and my wife decides to chip in about cheating in original Olympic Games, started a lighthearted banter. They're talking in our native language and I'm trying to translate to Indy's GF. And then it happened. Me equals me, I equals Indy, SM equals stressed mum, AC1 plus AC2 equals amazed child 1 and 2 respectively. SM, excuse me. What the guide is talking about. I turn around and see a woman in her 30s and two boys, the older around 8 to 9 yo and the younger around 6 to 7 yo. Everything on her screams tourist. She wears a sundress, has a small backpack with supplies for the children, we found out later, a guide to the Louvre book and a look of stress on her face. My wife and I have that look occasionally now, it's common on parents. Me, they're talking about cheating on the ancient Olympics, AC1, wow. They used to cheat back then? The younger one is glued to the model. AC2, who's that? He asked, pointing at the statue. That caught Indy's attention. That's Zeus, the leader of the Greek gods. AC2, wow. AC1, where is Mona Lisa? Down this corridor. You can't miss it. AC1, cool. Can you tell us the story for that? An awkward pause from everyone. SM, a bit embarrassed, you're not a tour guide, are you? No madam, I'm not. A sigh came out. SM. She grabbed her book tighter. SM, I'm sorry. You were speaking with such authority and the book is so unhelpful, we kinda thought, you know. It's alright. I hope I helped. In fact, we were going to visit the next section, if you want to follow. But I won't do the talking. Hannah, his GF, is more apt in this period than I. Hannah waved, smiling. AC1, can we go with them, mum? Please. She looked to each of us, trying to decide. SM, if it's not too much trouble. No trouble at all, both Indy and Hannah replied. AC1 plus 2, yee. SM, but, you have to be quiet and listen to the nice people. AC1 plus 2, yes mum. They followed us the rest of the day at the Louvre, with either Indy or Hannah answering the kids' questions. It was lovely to see the look of amazement on their faces as we walked through the museum. The mother told us her husband was invited in a week-long convention in Paris from his company and brought them along for vacations. She insisted to buy us lunch, which we politely declined. We settled for coffee in one of the small cafes outside of Louvre. Her husband joined us later on. The kids asked a million questions about the exhibits during our coffee. But their true delight was they discovered Hannah was from a country that had Vikings. All in all, a nice stroll in the Louvre. The next one is titled, Sir, I'm not your employee, you can't fire me. The cast goes like this: O, me, F, friend, L, mother, K, kid, M. Manager. This anecdote arose a year ago. I was leaving high school with my friend and it occurred to us to go to a shopping center that was about 15 minutes from school. When my friend and I arrived, we saw a new sports store. We went to see the football helmets. We both play football because I wanted to improve my equipment to a more recent one. I stayed in the store while my friend told me, F, I'm going to find something to eat, if you don't go soon there won't be anything left for you. So I tried to hurry by choosing one of the models, but then a mother with his son approached me, asking me questions about which model is better. I was already in a hurry to go to eat with my friend, but this woman brings her son closer to me. He asks if I can help him try on some things. I don't know why, but I agreed. This boy was very thin and pale, so I asked him, oh, in what position do you play? K, I don't know yet, it's my first time playing football. Oh, I understand, by your physique I suppose they will make you a cornerback or receiver. Let me show you some things that will serve you. K, are you a cornerback? Oh, no, I am a linebacker, but I have played in most positions. I finished showing her some accessories and then he goes back to her mother. She gives me everything back and says, L, thank you very much, can you take it to the cashier and charge it to this card? Oh, I'm sorry lady, but I don't work here. L, of course, you helped us in everything. Oh, it was simple kindness. Lady L, you're lying. How can you treat us like that? Bring your manager. Oh, lady, I repeat that I am not an employee. The lady was yelling a lot, to which the manager turns her chair. Yes, this idiot was always on his phone behind a large desk. M, what's happening? Just charge him and that's it. Oh, I am not an employee. You should know it since you are the manager. M, you know what? Get out of my store, you're fired. This guy was always on his phone, he didn't even turn to see me. Oh, I'm not going to go, I haven't done anything. M, security, get this guy out here. A security employee approaches me and tries to push me. I was bigger than him so I dodged him, making him slip. This guy gets angry and calls the mall supervisor. This guy arrives and asks what is happening. What? The mother intervenes. L, this kid is a liar, they fired him, and he got very aggressive. The supervisor looks at me, says that my uniform is from school, not from the store. Everyone is silent, and the guy asks to see the security cameras since he doubts that I have done something wrong. When they see the video, they realize that I had entered the store first and then I helped the child. In the end it shows how the manager does not even turn to see me and that the security guard tried to push me without reason. The manager kept apologizing to me, repeating that he had a 50% discount on my purchase. The lady was very sorry for yelling at me, and the security guard was fired. He had already some incidents of unnecessary violence recorded, but the worst part was that I didn't get a single piece of KFC chicken that my friend bought. The next one is titled, He's Supposed to Be Setting an Example. This story doesn't fit with the retail environment of this thread's stories, but I've noticed a theme of deserving entitled receiving their karmic comeuppance. So, I submit this for your consideration. Years ago, when I was attending Naval Nuclear Power School in Orlando, my best friend and I were involved in an incident at the Navy Exchange on base. It was payday, so after class, BF and I headed over to the exchange to cash our checks and pick up a few things. The exchange was part of a cluster of shops with a covered area connecting them. With the blazing Florida sun that day, there was quite a crowd gathered in the shaded area. As we were headed for the door of the exchange, we saw a well-dressed late middle-aged woman carrying a large number of packages trying to get through the door. Why she didn't have a cart for all of her packages, I have no clue. BF and I each grabbed one side of the double doors and opened them up for her. Just as she is coming through the door, a LTJG comes charging through, nearly knocking her off of her feet and sending her packages flying. The lieutenant joins with a cluster of other junior officers having a BS session. I catch the woman's arm to steady her, and once she's regained her balance, I run to get a shopping cart while BF starts gathering up her packages. When I return a moment later, we put all of her packages in the cart and present it to the woman. She gives us a huge smile and thank you. BF is a bit of a smart mouth and sees that the offending lieutenant still BSing with his buddies. He pitches his voice loud enough that he's sure the lieutenant will hear and says, "Our pleasure, ma'am. Some of us don't require an act of Congress to be gentlemen." Even though I'm laughing at this verbal barb, alarm bells are sounding in my head. Sure enough, the lieutenant has indeed heard and is striding our way, red-faced and breathing fire. BF and I pop to attention, and he proceeds to ream us each a new one. I must admit, his command of profanity was impressive. And coming from a sailor, that's saying something. During this tirade, I noticed that the lady we assisted has pushed her cart over to another small group of officers, talking to them, and pointing in our direction. One of the officers detaches himself from the group and comes striding over. I swear, I had never seen as many scrambled eggs gold braid on a hat in my life. And his shoulder boards have 2 stars. It's the base commanding officer. OMG, we're done for now. BF and I are starting to reach for our IDs and getting ready to be put on report. He looks at BF and me and says, "Gentlemen, thank you for assisting my wife. You may go now." We snap out salutes and a brisk "yes sir" and beat feet into the exchange. We look back through the glass wall to see the lieutenant standing at a very rigid attention while the admiral reduces him to a quivering puddle. I don't know what happened after that, but it's likely that he had very limited advancement potential and wasn't very happy with the choices of duty stations he had available to him. The next one is titled, "Wrong Phone Number Leads to Free Vet Apps." Not sure if this belongs here, but reading these stories reminded me of a past incident. About 10 years ago in January I started getting phone calls asking if the caller could make a vet appointment for their animal. I would politely say "you dialed wrong" and "have a nice day" and hang up. But as the month went on, the calls became more frequent, so I looked into by asking what vet they were calling. The callers told me and said they got it off a mailer that was sent to them. So I looked them up and found the problem. It was then I realized our phones were only different by the last 2 digits. When theirs is reversed, you get me. So, I called them to ask if there was going to be a retraction sent. Well, I got the run around because nobody knew what to do or did care. After being on hold and transferred around for nearly 30 minutes, I hung and called back. I informed the receptionist that from now on anyone who called me would be told that their appointment was free of charge if they came down right away. The receptionist said I could, and I said I would. About 5 minutes later the owner called me apologizing and said he would call the media company and have a new mailer sent highlighting the right phone and asked if I would not antagonize the clients with false claims. I agreed and said I wouldn't, but if he didn't do what he promised then all bets were off. After a couple of weeks, the calls died down and it probably helped that I changed my voicemail message to say "this isn't the bet, you dialed wrong and here is the right number." Looking back, it was funny, but at the time it was really annoying, with the phone constantly ringing, like all those fake calls we get now. The next one is titled, "Somebody Should Complain to the City About Road Work Being Done Outside Your Building." First time poster on this sub. I honestly never thought I would have anything to contribute here, but I now stand corrected. On mobile and slightly visually impaired, so please excuse any spelling, formatting mistakes. I work reception at a senior's home in a newer neighborhood that's still under development in my city. For about a week recently, a crew was working outside my building to install sewage lines. To do this, they had to tear up the road, and obviously, the road was closed while they did that. In order to get to our parking lot and underground parkade, you had to drive about 3 minutes around a grassy area to come in from the other side, or you could park 2 minutes walk further away from the doors than you normally did. Another important thing to note is that the city didn't tell us that they were going to start this work. My co-workers showed up on Monday morning to a closed, torn-up road. Not the most pleasant surprise for anyone. Most people were pretty reasonable about this. They made some casual chit-chat about that road work is really inconvenient. I had to drive around to get to the parking lot. At least we can still get in there, though. I would empathize and offer some agreement, then I would ask them if they have the virus and we would all be on our way. Well, one older gentleman was decidedly not happy about having to drive or walk further than usual. He came in to visit his resident and left with no issue. Then, later in the evening, he decided he simply had to call and tell me what was up. He complained at me for about 20 minutes about how inconvenient it was that the road was torn up, how awful it was for him to have to walk a little further, etc. etc. He was also super mad that we hadn't notified anyone about the road work. I did my best to empathize, responding that they hadn't told those of us who work in the building either that it was happening, but it was a good thing we still had access to our parking lot. He didn't seem to understand that neither I nor my company had anything to do with the road work. Even after I told him, he kept ranting. Finally, I had enough. My phones were ringing off the hook. I had a lineup of people waiting to be screened so they could either start their shifts or visit their family members, and I had a huge to-do list for that night. I cut into his tirade and asked, "Sir, is there anything I can help you with?" He seemed extremely taken aback and muttered, "No." "Good. Then have a great night." And I hung up the phone. It felt excellent. The next one is titled, Had to Tell an Ex-Employer I Don't Work For You. 3 years after quitting, I worked for a home care agency and was assigned to an independent living facility. Mostly just med reminders and housekeeping. The company I worked for was shady AF. So much happened I'm surprised I stayed as long as I did, but I'll stick to what relevant here, this may be long. So cliff notes, they cut my hours on days, evening to the point I lost my benefits. I took the full-time nights posting. It was just me and one other girl switching off 12 hours nights 4 days one week 3 the next. 11 p.m. to 11 a.m. It was great and I loved it. Work was easy and I still got to see my residents. I usually got there at 10:30 p.m. to get report from the evening worker so she could leave by 11. My duties all night were get report, sign out keys, organize that day's paperwork, set the dining room for the next day, do like 4 people's laundry, had access to 5 washers and 5 dryers, and do room checks on like 10 people every 2 hours, pop my head in, make sure they weren't on the floor, and answer any emergency pages. Everything but checks and pages were done by 3 a.m. sometimes 2 a.m. Well, they hired a guy and decided to give him 2 of my shifts and 2 of the other girls' shifts. I was in charge of training him and had to sign off before he worked independently. I wasn't impressed but said fine. First shift he shows up at 4 a.m. Shift starts at 11, works now done, go home. Next shift 7 a.m. he comes in, same thing, next 2 were no shows. Then finally showed up. He was awful. I started looking for another job and found one quickly. I tried for 4 days to hand in my 2-week resignation. Supervisor isn't available, office is locked on a Tuesday at 10 a.m. So, I dropped it in their mailbox, and when they called me, I told them the date stated would be my last day. Fast forward 2 weeks. I get a call to go in, I explain I quit, why I quit, and that I don't work for the company anymore. Repeat this sporadically over the next 2.5 years. I got calls at all hours. I called the area coordinator, the regional coordinator, always being assured it won't happen again. My final straw was a 4 a.m. phone call 3 years after I quit from the after-hours scheduler. Lost my crap. Called corporate and made them delete my number and file and told them I haven't worked for you for 3 ducking years. The lack of having any schedule should have been a ducking clue. Your company calls me again and I'll file harassment charges. Figure your ducking crap out and stop ducking calling me. I don't work for you, and hung up. Been a year now and I think it finally worked. The next one is titled, Husband Goes Full Drill Sergeant on a Karen. Before I start this story, I have to tell you about my husband. I'm French and we met while he was on vacation in Europe. One thing leads to another and now I live in Ohio with him. He is a hard-working gentleman, an army veteran of 2 conflicts, and thought he has a very serious and almost hostile demeanor, think resting witch face, but angrier and on a guy. He is a big teddy bear, quick to make a joke or pull a prank and easy to laugh. He is also very protective of me. Since I'm not here to gush on him, I'll go on. We were out getting groceries last week. As we were checking out, I was bagging up all our stuff because the store now requires that you bag your own goods if you bring your own bags. No big deal. He pays, and I stay to help a very elderly lady behind him bag her groceries and put them in her car. He had helped her unload them, and we offered to help her put them in her car. She shuffles away from the register and I move to follow. As I turn away, I hear behind me, "Where the hell do you think you're going?" I turn to see a very angry-looking woman glaring at me. I told her politely that I didn't work at the store and I had just helped the elderly lady to be polite and that I was now leaving with my husband to go home. I had never met an American Karen before, so I thought this would be the end of it. I turn to walk away and feel a vice grip on my arm. "Don't be lazy. Just do your job and help bag my groceries." I didn't even have time to respond. She had barely finished speaking when my husband wrenched her hand off me and was yelling in her face. This was the first time in the 10 years we've been together that I saw the old soldier come out. His nose might have been 3 inches from hers and his voice was loud and frightening. "Who the F do you think you are? How dare put your hands on my wife? She told you she doesn't work here. Are you too ducking stupid to understand simple English? Go pay for your crap, bag your own damn groceries and don't you dare utter another ducking sound." The silence after that was intense. A store full of people could hear a pin drop. The look on her face wasn't even angry, it was pure terror. She shuffled back to her aisle and waited for the cashier. My husband went to the old lady and said, "I am so sorry you had to hear all that, ma'am. I apologize if my language was offensive. I hope you will still allow us to help you load your groceries into your car." It was surreal, like he had just flipped on a switch and flipped it back off. Also, we got chased down by the store manager who suggested we could be banned because of the yelling and bad language. Husband just shrugged and said they had better ban the Karen too for assaulting me, and that there are other grocery stores in town, we just go to this one because it's close. Didn't get banned. The next one is titled, "I'm Just a Kid." I used to sing in this choir when I was younger. We had 2 different uniforms. One of them was a navy polo and khaki pants with black shoes. After one of our concerts, my family decided to check out a new sports store down the road that just opened. Our uniforms looked a lot like the employees' uniform. At the time of this story, I was 11. Cast op ice cream hold the sprinkles. EP entitled Parent NK Nice Kid, Teenager MP My Parents. I was walking down the front row near the registers looking at some t-shirts. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see EP watching me. EP approaches and taps me on the shoulder. Excuse me, where are the soccer balls? Op, I'm sorry, I don't know. I would ask a person at the register. EP, how do you not know where the soccer stuff is? I know this place just opened, but you should really know where stuff is. It's rude to not help a customer. Op, I don't know where the soccer stuff is because I don't work here. At this point, I'm looking for my parents. I look up and notice a big picture on the wall that has a football, soccer ball, and baseball on it. Op, pointing to the picture, maybe you should try there. EP, are you stupid? Do you not think that I noticed that? I want you to show me where the soccer balls are. NK, Dad, I don't think that she works here. She looks like a kid. Op, that's because I am one. I'm 11, EP, no you're not. You have on a uniform. I point to the logo on my polo. NK has walked away. Op, yeah, my uniform for La Dida Chorus. EP, get me your manager. You should be written up. My parents have come back up the registers. They notice the man starting to get louder. MP, Op. You okay? Why are you talking to our daughter? EP, your daughter wouldn't show me where the soccer balls are. MP, yeah, she wouldn't show you because she's 11, and she doesn't just walk off with strangers in a store. Go ask a real employee. EP, well, kids like soccer, so she should know where they are. NK comes back with a soccer ball. NK, Dad, they were under the picture that Op pointed at. EP, oh, okay. Well, that would have been over a lot sooner if you would have just shown us. Have your kid work on some customer service skills. EP and NK walk away to check out. MP and I get as far away from them as possible.